Alright folks, we have come back. Looks like I'm going to get to go to this next case without even having to worry about reports. So, let's get to it. This is the first one in Crimson Banks. Bridge over troubled water. Matthew, we've barely left Coyote Gorge, but we're already dealing with the fallout of Vittorio Capesci's death. You arrested Seamus O'Neill for the mobster's murder, but Vittorio's wife and daughter fled. One thing we know is that Franca Capesci has sworn revenge. She promised to paint the river crimson with Irish blood to avenge her husband's murder. If her ominous words referred to Crimson Banks, the commercial heart of Concordia, this will bring us fresh trouble and paperwork galore. Crimson Banks is home to many Irish and Italian businesses, which have historically flourished side by side on the two banks of the river. Chief, we just had word that an Irishman was found dead in a slaughterhouse on the Italian side of the river. Then there's no time to dawdle, Matthew. If this has anything to do with the Italian vendetta, we must nip it in the bud. Go to that slaughterhouse and investigate at once. You got it, Chief.
Sunset Beach seeing some scattered light showers on Maya as well, so some scattered train showers as we move into the night. Train winds
kind of reminds you a bit of Case 3 in Grimsboro, doesn't it?
rain showers in the morning. Most part,
So we're starting out in a slaughterhouse.
some sunshine. Not only for Thursday but for Friday as well. Temperatures right around 87 degrees.
Holy smokes.
Afternoon ahead. Extended forecast looks like this. We are tracking
That's gruesome.
changes for the weekend. So by Sunday, another little disturbance will bring us rain chances that will be a little bit higher. We'll also see a little bit more humidity and lighter winds. We're talking more about that. We'll get your outbound forecasts.
Hey, thank you for that. What if we told you could rake in cash while doing your purchase? Think of Early Melted Candlelight, a program that pays you to work out. There now is proof that program works.
Alright.
Welcome to the Heavenly Couples
Number
Experience
3 already.
Massage. Surprise your significant other with a romantic journey of relaxation.
Good heavens, that man is hanging from those meat hooks like a piece of butchered meat, with his guts spilling out. Sorry, Matthew, it's just that it's the most gruesome murder we've seen in a while. This man's wearing a uniform of some kind. Well spotted, Matthew. He has a name badge, too. So our victim was called Thomas Boyd. It is indeed an Irish name. But he was killed on the Italian side of the river. If this is the work of the Italian gang, they clearly haven't wasted their time. But you're right, it's early for such conclusions. First we must learn more about this unfortunate Irishman and how he met his end in the slaughterhouse. And I see you found some clues already. That broken figurine might shed light on how the murder happened. Let's piece it back together. And I'm afraid we'll have to look in that bucket full of pig heads too. Don't get blood on your clothes as you dig in. Matthew, whether this is a gang-related murder or not, we shall protect Crimson Banks from more bloodshed. Let's get to work. And we will. And it looks like we're going to get some coins already. As we begin, Case 31. Okay, and I'm going to start up the autopsy, and I need to collect some stars. In fact, as a matter of fact, I already got 1 star, so let's see if I can find out if there is if I can unlock the next crime scene and possibly get all the stars.
Well, might get him in hot water with his wife. Nick Wakita has a passion for kayak fishing, and it nearly came back to bite him.
8. It's a pig. Sweet mother of pearl, Matthew. What is that thing? A little piggy with a cheerful smile, wielding a whacking great cleaver? Just who in heavens would have such a thing around? And why? You put Prince Porky back together again. How sweet of you. Prince Porky? You mean this? He's my lucky charm, and I'm Butcher Betty. I work here in the slaughterhouse. Can I interest you in some belly or shoulder? We're from the flying squad, Miss Betty, and you can help us by answering some questions about the human blood that's been shed here today.
A kayak fisherman for 2 years who kills even the first of his friends to catch a shark encounter on video.
Alright, I'm gonna have to get some stars, so sit tight, everybody.
Plus serious side effects such as low heart rate, increased risk of serious
Okay,
infections,
folks,
additional macular edema,
I have come back
processes in the brain, breathing a little
with 11 stars now.
skin cancer.
So this will be, so initially I got 12, but I used one already. Betty, you said you worked here in the slaughterhouse. How in heavens did you not notice a dead man hanging from the hooks? A dead man? We don't sell those here, love. Only beef and pork. But I suppose dead meat is dead meat, whatever creature was before. Mind you, I've been out in the back all day and have just come in. If murders have been happening here, it wasn't on my watch. Is that so? Well, the dead man's name was Thomas Boyd. Did you know him? Tommy Boyd, you say? He's the fellow who drove a red taxi cab, ferrying people across the bridge. You know, between the Irish and the Italian side. A taxi cab driver? That explains the uniform, although I don't recall a red car parked outside. I wouldn't know about that, Senior Trooper Matthew. Never spoken to the fellow. I got no time to ride automobiles, nor any reason to go to the Irish side. Now if you'll excuse me, I gotta go sharpen my knives. Ugh, is it just me, or is Betty the Butcher a little too fond of sharp knives? But you're right, she did tell us something useful about the victim. He carried passengers across the river, so he must have crossed Crimson Bridge every day. Let us look for clues there. First, I'm going to get rid of the bucket first. Oh darn, wait, hold on, let me try that again. I don't really know how that happened, but let's try that again. 8. Matthew, I wonder how that bracelet ended up in that bucket full of discarded meat. The bracelet is made of rudimentary knots and tiny carved skulls. Could it be a threat or a message? If we're dealing with a gang vendetta, anything's possible. You're right, Rose is the expert on such matters. Let's dispatch this bracelet to her.
You didn't have to be so rude.
What's your mom?
Okay.
You think I spent my good money sending you to that computer?
So disregard that little message you saw. That was somebody who I chatted with on Messenger.
Stink of booze, got lipstick all over you. You really think that some Prince Charming is gonna marry into this family?
Okay. Alright, let's get the first star here.
Well, I read your old literature last night, Sam, but I think it's the best poem you've ever written.
Find me another one like him, son.
Thank you, Doctor.
So you see why I should have the lead-off spot again this year.
It's a real problem.
Here we are.
Where the hell my saber saw you were going to return last night? Calm down, I'll get it to you. Make it fast, Ron. I'm putting the business here. Those will do just nice.
This is Crimson Bridge, connecting the Italian and the Irish banks of the river. The victim must have crossed it many times with his cab, so we're bound to find clues. You've already found a parking fine issued to the victim? The name of the officer has been torn off, but I'm sure you can reconstruct it from what little's left. And that beautiful pocket watch adorned with a shamrock must have belonged to an Irishman. Let us recover the engraving on the lid.
Don't scare me,
Got me another card.
Can't play poker with 5 guys. That's you, Ollie.
So what do I say, Joe? But
I don't know. Ticked off about something.
what else is? What needs him his temper anyway?
Oh, that was all about last night, Art. Turning down is nothing but trouble.
No, I didn't hear you had occasion to know that, Al. No, I doubt if there's any one of you guys who...
The engraving on the pocket watch says, "From Scott Buckley to Thomas Boyd to remember the old country." So this was a gift to our victim. A splendid find, Matthew. This Scott Buckley and our victim must have been close. Let us find this Mr. Buckley and we'll have a valuable character witness.
Sam Bryce.
Scott Buckley, okay.
Hey, Sam.
What the hell did you do to my saw? Now it's not working.
I didn't do anything to your stupid saw. It must be the power source. Check the outlet.
There's nothing wrong with the plug.
Mr. Buckley, we're from the Flying Squad. I'm afraid we have bad news about an acquaintance of yours. Thomas Boyd was murdered. Tommy's dead? No, he can't be. He was but a young lad with all his life ahead of him. You see, Senior Trooper Matthew, Tommy was the first person I met here in Concordia. After I came over from Ireland with my family, at my age, it's not easy to leave everything behind. But Tommy restored my faith in Providence. He showed me much kindness, and I gave him my last valuable possession in gratitude. We are sorry that you lost a good friend, Mr. Buckley. Can you think of anyone who might have wanted to hurt Tommy? He was such a fine young man. It's unthinkable that he had enemies. Life at Concordia must be harsher than I thought. I hear you can't even drink whiskey around here, Senior Trooper Matthew. Not that I can afford to drown my sorrows, mind you.
Says that pay 3/4 of what it takes to replace it. What are you supposed to do? Drive 3/4 of a car? Now, if you had Liberty Mutual in the car replacement, you'd get your whole car.
All right.
I guess they don't want you driving around in 3 wheels. Smart.
With Liberty Mutual, new car replacement will replace the full value of the car. Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Ramirez.
Actually begins working fast for clearly visible results in his limited
OMG, really?
fix this teen skateboarding mishap.
Matthew, it says here that the parking fine was issued to the victim by Constable Ramirez.
Other teen games.
Then he can surely tell us where the victim parked. Let's go to the police station and ask him.
Best. Along with diet and exercise, once daily Jujeo may help you control
Matthew, I hear you're having a traffic-related emergency. Constable, can you recall the circumstances when you issued this parking ticket to Thomas Boyd? I remember that reckless motorist very well. He was in habitual violation of parking regulation number 458B, obstruction of a public thoroughfare with a motorized vehicle. Let me check. He committed these offenses always at the same location, outside the residence of a certain Margarita Morello on the Italian side of the river. Always at the same address? Now that's a pattern that may be significant. Thank you, Constable. Miss Morello must have been a regular customer of the victim. Matthew will have a word with her.
Don't use needles or share insulin pens. The most common side effect is low blood sugar, which can be life-threatening. It may cause shaking, sweating, fast heartbeat, blurred vision.
Miss Morello, we're from the Flying Squad, inquiring about a certain Thomas Boyd. We know he drove to your house a lot. Indeed, Mr. Boyd drives me to my many appointments, a very reliable gentleman. I don't know what I'd do without his services. As you imagine, an Italian lady always crosses the bridge with a certain trepidation. But Mr. Boyd makes you feel safe, even on the Irish side. Actually, Miss Morello, we must inform you that Mr. Boyd has been murdered. Murdered? But why? Mr. Boyd was always punctual and drove very safely. I can't fathom who would have wished him harm. I cannot believe this is happening. Now I must reschedule my beauty appointment, and the seamstress too. Your compassion for the victim is touching, Miss Morello. Please do get in touch if you remember anything else. And that's going to do for this, and I'll see you guys when these two are done. Bye for now. Okay, folks, we have returned. Let's get the results of the autopsy first from Dick. Matthew, do you read Pistols and Petticoats? Their murder mysteries are amusing, though woefully inaccurate, scientifically speaking. I prefer publications about automobile maintenance, Dick. Anyway, tell us about this Irishman Matthew found hanging in the slaughterhouse. That's exactly what I'm getting at, Maddie. No doubt you noticed that the victim's abdomen was cut open. It wasn't hard to notice that his insides were spilling out. The killer arranged the body to look like just another butchered pig. Oh, but he wasn't butchered like a pig, Madeline. Pigs are cut through straight down the middle, whereas the incision on your victim has a distinct V-shape. Now, I'll let Evelyn step forward and explain what she's just told me. Evie, are you still with us, or have you fainted again? I'm perfectly fine, just not accustomed to dead people. Matthew and Richard told me about the murder. It reminded me of a story I recently read in Pistols and Petticoats. The story takes place in a slaughterhouse featuring a man disemboweled with the same V-shaped incision on his abdomen as your victim presents here. Matthew, Evie, and I are confident the killer took their inspiration for the murder from this story published in Pistols and Petticoats. Well, if the killer is such a fan of Pistols and Petticoats, they must know how detective stories always end, with the killer's arrest. Okay, and the skull bracelet now from Rose. Matthew, this bracelet you found among butchered pig parts is a fascinating specimen. Do tell, Rose, what is so interesting about it? First, I asked Viola to analyze the blood on it. Not only was it human blood, but it was a match with your victim. Matthew, I'm certain the bracelet was the killer's, and I can explain why. Perhaps you noticed that this trinket is fashioned out of very rudimentary material, a simple shoelace and some carved stones. It is because the bracelet is something convicts make in prison to pass the time. These skulls signify fights won against other inmates. And our archives show that the victim didn't have a criminal record, which means it must have been the killer who lost their prison-made bracelet in the scuffle. So the killer has been in prison before, and that's where they'll go back again once Matthew is done with them. Matthew, until now, Crimson Banks was a prosperous commercial district where Irish and Italian businesses flourished side by side. But now, after Vittorio Capesci's recent murder, trouble is spilling over into this hitherto peaceful area of Concordia. Thomas Boyd, an Irishman who drove a taxicab between the two banks of the river, was found murdered in a slaughterhouse on the Italian side. An Italian lady, a regular customer of his, only had praise for the victim, just like the old Irish immigrant who was his friend. The only dubious character we encountered is Betty from the slaughterhouse. She hardly sees the difference between butchered meat and a murdered man. Matthew, there's been a development. We found the victim's car. Hello. We'll see you guys for Chapter 2. And we're back now for Chapter 2 of Bridge Over Troubled Water. Matthew, Crimson Banks used to be a prosperous commercial district where Irish and Italian businesses flourished side by side. But now, after Vittorio Capesci's recent murder, trouble is spilling over into this hitherto peaceful area of Concordia. We know that Franca Capesci swore in revenge for her husband's murder. Her whereabouts are unknown. But we already found a dead Irishman killed in a slaughterhouse on the Italian side of the river. We don't know yet if this murder was gang-related, just that Tommy Boyd was a taxicab driver who served both sides of the... Matthew, there's been a development. An abandoned vehicle was found near the docks on the Irish side, and the registration number shows it was the victim's car. The victim's car has been found? Matthew, there must be valuable evidence in it. Let's go to the docks, post haste. So this was the victim's car. It doesn't quite have the horsepower of the Madmobile, but the suspension seems rather excellent, and... Dash my wig, Mouthy, you're right. Those blood-stained rags may have come from the crime scene. Let's piece them back together. You reckon this is proof that the killer drove the victim's car here after the murder and then abandoned it full of incriminating evidence? All the more reason for a thorough inspection. Let's look inside the car's toolkit. And that cigar box has the Italian flag inlaid on it. Something else is faded on the lid. Let us recover it. Ah, my word, that apron you pieced back together is soaked in blood. Matthew, this apron must have come from our crime scene. Given how gruesome the murder was, the killer evidently needed this to protect their clothes. This also confirms your hunch that the killer drove the car away from the crime scene to dump evidence here. But now that you've found it, let's send the apron to Viola. This will seal the killer's fate. Start it right now. Just a sec, guys. All right. Tommy, you didn't keep your word. Scott. Matthew, there was a note in the car's toolkit, and it's addressed to our victim. It says, Tommy, you didn't keep your word. And the note is signed by Scott. You're right, it can only be Scott Buckley, the Irish immigrant who claimed Tommy Boyd was his friend. We'd better ask Mr. Buckley why he wrote this angry note to the victim. Mr. Buckley, you said Thomas Boyd was your friend, but Senior Trooper Matthew found proof that he let you down. I didn't want to speak ill of the dead, Senior Trooper Matthew, especially not of a fellow countryman. But a true Irishman never goes back on his word, and that's exactly what Tommy did. He promised he'd teach me to drive the automobile and give me a job in his taxicab business. The Concordian dream was finally within my reach. But after the first lesson, Tommy said I was too old to learn. I only drove into a lamppost once, but he never allowed me behind the wheel again. Senior Trooper Matthew, everyone tells me the Italians are our enemies here in Concordia, but who needs Italian foes when your own compatriots leave you in the lurch? Mr. Buckley, I hope you didn't make Thomas Boyd your deathly foe, or soon you'll be looking for friends in prison. Okay. There we are. Matthew, that symbol you revealed on the cigar box seems familiar. A scorpion above an Italian flag. Great memory, Matthew. We saw the same scorpion symbol on the lighter of an Italian gangster, Antonio Dante. He goes by the sobriquet Tony the Scorpion. We met Tony when his brother was murdered, mistaken for the Scarlet Slayer. Tony's a real mobster with no love for the Irish. But could he have killed Tommy Boyd? You're right, Matthew. The cigar box attests that Tony rode in the victim's car. We better find him and get his story.
Additional cheese for the Rubinstein.
Swiss, yes.
Cheesy Rubinstein. The name of this dish, in which cubes of bread are dipped into a pot of melted cheese, is French.
Senior Trooper Matthew, we meet again. Hope you're keeping those Irish pigs in check before they stink up the whole city. Interesting that you mentioned Irish pigs, Tony. We're looking for someone who murdered an Irishman in a slaughterhouse on your side of the Crimson Banks. He was a taxi driver, and Senior Trooper Matthews found your cigar box in his car. What do you have to say about this, Tony? You're trying to pin a murder on me because I took a taxi once? Porca vaca, that's patetico. No judge will send me to prison on the strength of this, and I've been put away once or twice, so I know what I'm talking about.
You don't want to go off this
Oops.
way. It refers to a safety mechanism to prevent accident. That's us.
We know the Italians have sworn revenge against the Irish for your gang leader's murder. You must know about Franco Capesci's plans. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Senior Trooper Matthew, if you want peace in Crimson Banks, you can start by leaving me alone. Sorry guys, I ended up accidentally clicking another link. So unfortunately I'm cheated out of 20, but that's alright. I'll see you guys when the apron has run its course. Okay folks, we have returned. I'm under unlimited energy happy hour, so speed up we go. Matthew, no matter how old I get, I never tire of looking at chemical compounds under the microscope. It reminds me of dear Papa, who first showed me the powders and crystals in the family apothecary. It must be wonderful to have parents who encourage your interests in life, Viola. Mine always just fret about me getting married and learning to cook. I'm sure they still want the best for you, Maddie. But alas, I know you're here on urgent business, which leads me back to microscopes and molecules. As you deduced, Matthew, the blood on this apron you found in the victim's car was a match of the victim's. But besides the blood, I found a chemical compound on the fabric. It was made up of carbon, hydrogen, chlorine, and oxygen, or chloral hydrate for short. Chloral hydrate is a drug frequently prescribed to calm frayed nerves, and since there was no trace of it in the victim's bloodstream, it could only have been left on the apron by the killer. Well, chloral hydrate clearly wasn't enough to calm the killer's murderous rage. And speaking of murder, we do well go back to the slaughterhouse for a fresh look at the crime scene, Matthew. Let's go.
Students in Britain protesting their school's dress code today.
So with the country experiencing a record-breaking heat wave, school officials are sticking to their no shirts policy. School endorsed skirts, though, not on that banned list. 60 boys showed up to campus in skirts they borrowed from their female classmates.
And trouble for one of the boys because his skirt was too short. Another boy hockey because his legs were too hairy. Message delivered though, the school plans to consult with families before making any dress code changes.
It's hard, man. Students, that's all about equality and equity.
Major points for creativity. I went in Alligator in Florida, painted stomping grounds. Letting
Okay.
the photographer know he was too close twice.
Yeah, the cameraman set up his gear at the edge of the water and the gator, although looking to lunge for it, the photographer scrambled, of course, putting some bushes in front of him.
When he moved, the gator followed him for a bit before retreating back into the water when the photographer tried to get a shot of his iPhone. The gator lunged again.
Come by, you learn.
He lunges at you once. What are you doing?
I have no idea. Some people
They don't chase you like that. They chase you like that.
used to hang around with alligators in Florida. Didn't
Okay.
No, it's trouble. Thank you for joining us. See y'all tomorrow. Have a pleasant evening.
Okay. A little under 1,200 to go. Matthew, that cap you found was familiar, but I can't quite remember where I've seen it before. You're right, the cap's covered in some strange yellow buds. Let's see if collecting a sample of it will jog my memory. And that cake is adorable. It's decorated with little piggies all around. but slaughterhouses don't usually sell cake. You reckon it's a gift for that butcher girl? Betty? It's true, she seems fond of piggies. There's a little note on the top of the cake. Let's recover the writing.
I'm looking at the photos. Carbon dating puts it over 4,000 years old. This is the original Nefertari bust from Medina.
I better do everything right now because my tablet is low.
This is wonderful news. How quickly can we get it here?
What are you talking about? Are you crazy? You expect me to smuggle this into Egypt?
Scotland, I have no intention of entrusting a $10 million artifact to the Fates House. It's in it for you. Put it in your hand like that. The museum
Got it.
is carte blanche with the customs service, and I'll have an affidavit for you verifying that it's all ready.
Matthew, now that we have a sample of those yellow buds from the cap, let's put them under the microscope and see what they are.
The persistent woman on the board of your museum was her name Fletcher. She's most anxious to finalize the exchange exhibition between the Museum of Cultural History in New York and us here. But under no circumstances let her know what you're doing.
It'll take me a month to get this together.
Oh no, a week at the latest. I find myself in great difficulty.
We had pictures. The one here in Cairo is a fake. The thing just turned up.
Dry hops. Those buds you collected from the cap we found in the slaughterhouse are hops. Hops are used for brewing and flavoring beer. You trust the resident drinker on that, Matthew. And now I also know why the cap looked familiar to me when I first saw it. There's only one man in Concordia who brews his own beer using hops. Dermot McMurphy, that bartender I used to be chums with, and he also wears a flat cap exactly like the one you found. Our friendship cooled considerably after you arrested Dermot for running a fight club underneath his pub, where that poor doctor was beaten to death. But if we found his cap in the slaughterhouse, he must have been released. We'd better find Dermot and make sure he's not looking for trouble again. What he's doing out of prison? Dermot, care to explain what you and your cap are doing out of prison? You were supposed to be locked up for running an illegal fight club. Why, if it's not Maddie and Senior Trooper Matthew from the flying squad, I thought I was shot of you once I got out of prison. I was released for good behavior, like, I won't be up to any trouble again, I promise you. Well, trouble's already brewing in Crimson Banks. A fellow named Thomas Boyd was found murdered. Did you know him? Tommy Boyd? Aye, used to come by me pub before Senior Trooper Matthew put me away and shut the place down. But I haven't seen him since. Can't help you there, I'm afraid. I see. Just one more question, Dermot. What were you doing in the slaughterhouse on the Italian side? That's where we found your cap. Why, buying meat, what else? Me lady friend Rachel loves a good steak and she sent me out on an errand to get some. We'll take your word for it this time, Dermot, but make sure we don't live to regret it.
Those are our suitcases. And that one? Hey, stop it!
One.
Allowed him to get away.
Why would anybody want my carry-on bag?
I'm gonna get security. Where on earth is Faris?
Also, it's not an inconvenient time, Minister. But if you had called earlier, I would have arranged for a lunch. That is very kind, Sharif. But I find my little surprise visit can begin my museum director's hearing responsibilities.
Dash my wig, Matthew. The note on the cake for Betty is written in Italian. But you're right, whatever Betty's hiding, Evie shall reveal. Let's get this cake to her. Alright, I'll see you guys in 9 hours when this cake is done. See y'all then. Okay, folks, we have returned. Let's get the results of the Italian message from Evie. Evie, can you tell us what the Italian message means on Betty's cake? Matthew, the message is simple. Here's something to sweeten the deal. Sweeten the deal? This sounds a lot like what gangsters would say. What kind of deals is Betty making with the Italians? Matthew, is this about the Italian gang? They're here in Crimson Banks, right? Killing people just like in Coyote Gorge. If Betty is in league with them, I want to go to the slaughterhouse with you. I want to get even with those dastardly Italian gangsters. Evie, we understand your anger about what the gang did to you in Coyote Gorge. Please leave this to us. You'd best stay safe on the airship. But rest assured that Matthew and I will confront Betty about her deals with the Italians. Ooh. She's reading Pistols and Petticoats. Ah, Senior Trooper Matthew. I was so engrossed in Pistols and Petticoats I didn't hear you. What would you like? A pork chop? Some bacon? We like some answers about the deals you've been making with the Italians. You know how it is, Senior Trooper Matthew. Sometimes you do a favor and the customer is grateful. The Italians run this side of the river. It helps to be cordial with them. But the only deal we have that I deliver meat to them on time. They just like to put big words on things. I wouldn't get mixed up in any trouble. I've already been to jail when I was young. I'm real fastidious about doing everything by the book. An Irishman was killed in your shop. If you were involved, you'd be in fresh trouble indeed. 2 black marks against Betty now. Matthew, we have a dead Irishman on our hands, murdered in a slaughterhouse on the Italian side of Crimson Banks. Among the suspects is my former friend Dermot McMurphy, who's out of prison and back in town, but he claims to have learned his lesson and wants no more trouble with the law. We also met another old acquaintance, Tony the Scorpion Dante. If he's the one who killed Tommy Boy, then it's definitely the gang's vendetta for Vittorio Capesci's murder. But for now, the only suspect who held any grudge against the victim is another Irishman, Scott Buckley. He was desperate for work, and Tommy refused to employ him as a driver. This leaves us with... Matthew, is that the phone ringing? How exciting! No one ever telephones us! Flying Squad, hello? Matthew, help me! Someone's trying to kill me! Oh, Evie, why didn't you stay on the airship? We'll find out what Evie got herself into in Chapter 3. See y'all then. Alright folks, we have come back and Evie's in some trouble. Evie, where are you? And who wants to kill you? I'm outside the slaughterhouse. Please come quick. The slaughterhouse, you say? Don't move, Evie. We'll be there in a minute. Evie, where are you? Thank goodness you're here, Matthew. I should have listened to you and stayed on the ship. But after what happened in Coyote Gorge, I couldn't just sit in the library while you were out chasing criminals. So I came to the slaughterhouse, and that woman attacked me. She was running after me with a knife. I barely made it to the phone booth outside. What's that you're saying about me? I only chased after you because I thought you needed help. I wanted to offer a sniff of chloral hydrate to calm you down. You were humming a song about slitting my throat. That's just a habit. No need to take it personally. Senior Trooper Matthew, do all the cops have milk for blood these days? No wonder the city's going to the dogs. Milk for blood? I'd like to see you hold your own in a shootout with gangsters. Oh dear. Evie, I realize you've been through a lot lately, but please go back to the airship and try to calm down. And Betty, you can put that knife away. This is evidently a big misunderstanding. Meanwhile, we have an actual murder to investigate. Matthew, we ought to check the victim's car again. It was instrumental in the killer's escape, and we'd better make sure they won't give us the slip again. Oh, Betty just made herself a possible murderer. Dash my wig, Matthew. That must be the ignition key to the victim's car. It may also be the key to solving this murder. That emblem on the keychain is oddly familiar. Looking it up in our archives might tell us more about the victim. And that looks like the taxi's cash box. You're right, we should look through it. I'm sure putting that torn photograph back together will also be instructive. Matthew, it's time to step on the gas and give this investigation some speed. Let us find out who killed our Irish driver. Matthew, the man in the photograph is our victim. And you're right, we know a woman with him too. It's Margarita Morello. They look like a happy couple on a joyful excursion. Interesting that Margarita never mentioned they were close. She praised Tommy as a chauffeur, but she was rather cold about his death. You're right, Matthew, we better talk to Margarita again. Miss Morello, we found this picture of you and Tommy Boyd. You never mentioned you were close. Senior Trooper Matthew, you've discovered my secret. So I don't have to hold back my tears any longer. Tommy and I were in love. Oh, I see. But why didn't you tell us about your relationship before? I got so used to hiding it. An Italian lady and an Irish gentleman. We were like the forbidden lovers in pistols and petticoats. But I didn't care that Tommy was Irish and only a poor chauffeur, and he loves me even though I'm Italian. I even confessed to him that a youthful indiscretion landed me in prison, but Tommy didn't care. I thought love was stronger than hatred and fear. But our love was doomed. Tommy was taken from me. Mamma mia, no amount of chloral hydrate will ever dry these tears. I'm willing to bet she killed him because he wouldn't say yes to when she popped, or because he wouldn't say yes when she popped the question. But that's my theory. There we are. Matthew, I thought there'd be a lot of money in the victim's cash box, but there's only this check in it. And it's not even payment from a passenger. The check was signed by our victim. Apparently, Tommy Boyd was going to pay 100 shillings to someone. That's quite a fortune, but there's no other name on the check, just an account number. Evie's taking the rest of the day off, but now that Diego's part of our team, he should examine this check for us. Oops. There we are. Oh, and I still got the 9. Dermot's tattoo. Matthew, the emblem on the car key was a match of Dermot McMurphy's tattoos. It's the same rose. But why would Dermot's tattoo pattern be on Tommy's car key? Dermot said he barely knew the fellow. You're right, Matthew. It is evident that Dermot is hiding something. We shall question him about this. Dermot, you said you didn't know Tommy Boyd well, but it turns out his car key bears the same rose symbol as your tattoos. That can't be a coincidence. It is not a coincidence. I put that symbol on the keychain because the key was mine. And the key was mine because the car was mine. Mine! Tommy took it from me. Tommy took the car from you? How? I never knew you had a car. Maddie, there's plenty you and the coppers don't know about me, but it's true. That car was mine, and I loved it almost more than me pub. I left it in that treacherous devil's care when I went to jail. I trusted him to look after it, counting down the days until I could drive it again. But he refused to part with it when I came out. He said that taxicab business paid too well to give it up. Of course, a fellow like me can't go to the police, but now that you know the car is mine, do you reckon I could get it back, Senior Trooper Matthew? Dermot, that's shocking even from you. A man's dead and you only care about your car? If Senior Trooper Matthew finds out you killed Tommy for it, your days of driving are over. And I'll let the check run its course. For now, this is Matthew. See you then. Okay, folks, we have returned. Let's get the results of the check from Diego. Madeline, Matthew, welcome to my very own office on the airship. Do you like what I've done with the place? I was hoping to spend more time with you now, Madeline, but I know you only have eyes for Charlie. I hope at least I get an invitation to the wedding. Diego, why don't you mind your own business and tell us about that check Matthew found in the victim's cash box? Well, the account number belongs to a certain Antonio Dante. Of course, he doesn't use his real name with the bank, but I have infallible methods to make certain of his identity. The check is made out to him without a doubt. Tony Dante? But why would our victim have given money to an Italian gangster? Matthew, you've unearthed some shady dealings here. I'm sure of it. We must bring Tony in for questioning. Why the victim was paying him? Senior Trooper Matthew, next time you bring me up here, be kind enough to supply a copy of Pistols and Petticoats to help me pass the time while I wait. Very amusing, Tony. Now how about you tell us about this check Tommy Boyd wrote to you? Why was he giving you money? I'm surprised you haven't figured it out already, Senior Trooper Matthew. If Tommy wanted to work on the Italian side of the river, he had to pay the price. Taxicab driving is a dangerous occupation. Tommy agreed to pay me a small fee. A small fee to make sure he was safe. 100 shillings a month wasn't much for his peace of mind, almost cheaper than taking chloral hydrate and more effective. Effective? Tommy died right under your nose, on the Italian side, despite your protection. Well, I'm still just a man, not his guardian angel. If he pushed his luck and got himself killed, it's on him. And if you helped him die, it's on you. Matthew, our victim was living on the dividing line between the Irish and the Italians. But what was it that got him killed? Tommy Boyd was deeply in love with an Italian woman, defining the hatred between their people. Meanwhile, a fellow Irishman, Dermot McMurphy, harbored a huge grudge against the victim over his car. Love and hatred don't always conform to gang alliances, Matthew. So where shall we look for the truth? On the Irish side or on the Italian side? Splendid idea. Crimson Bridge connects the two sides of the river, and the victim crossed it many times. That's where we'll go for the final answers. Okay. And, of course, I haven't really got a guess at who the murderer is, but we'll see what happens.
sauce, and enzyme. Quaker breakfast flags are crafted with these delicious ingredients and more, and baked with our wholesome Quaker oats to help keep you going. Help satisfy your morning hunger with every single bite. Quaker breakfast flags.
Want to make slime? Start with Elmer's.
Or Elmer's glue and tablespoon.
Perfect.
Baking soda, add color, add contact solution.
I do not have to spend anything, and I could try go for the first star right away.
Slime recipes today.
When you're close to the people you love, does psoriasis ever get in the way of a touching moment? If you have moderate to severe psoriasis, you can embrace the chance of completely clear skin with Taltz. Taltz is proven to
Put
give
your
you a
knife.
chance at completely clear skin. With Taltz, up to 90% of patients had a significant improvement of their psoriasis products. In fact, 4 out of 10 even achieved completely clear skin. Do not use if you are allergic to Taltz. Before starting, you should be checked for tuberculosis. Taltz may increase your risk of infections and lower your ability to fight them. Tell your doctor.
There we go. Thought I got the first star.
Inflammatory bowel disease can happen with Taltz, including worsening of symptoms and serious allergic reactions can occur. Now's your chance at completely clear skin. Just ask your doctor about Taltz.
Dash my wig, Matthew. That knife is stained with blood, and it's no dainty little pocket knife either. I bet it's from the slaughterhouse. Given that it was disposed of all the way out here, this knife must be our murder weapon. We need a sample of that blood on it. And if the killer tried to discard evidence here, we must inspect the contents of that crate too. Anything can be hidden in there. Matthew, the killer shan't take us for a ride no more. We won't rest now until we've caught them.
Decisions.
I wanted to go to college and be a school teacher. Papa wanted me to be a cosmetician and a funeral parlor.
He always liked the big thing. Didn't he from the doctors? That was a thing that we talked about. Sometimes just to make the doctors the one that the baseball
Times the 5 years she let me make my own choices. This relationship that you're having with Rebecca is not about artificial insemination.
Matthew, let's send that blood sample from the murder weapon to Viola. It might tell us who slaughtered Tommy Boyd.
Refuse to see your daughter as an adult with the right to make her own decisions, honey. You're gonna have to let go.
Yes, and the more you try to make her see things the way you see things, the more she resists.
Then you're on the risk of never seeing her.
You're seeing the grandchild.
Now,
Think about it.
I suggest you apologize.
I know Rebecca is a grown woman, but to me she's still just a little girl. How is that not a to your own child? Especially after all those years of sending them to their rooms when they were ready to
Matthew, that contraption you pulled out from the vegetable crate is speckled with blood. Could this be evidence from a murder scene? You're right. Who better than Charlie to make sense of this? Let's send this apparatus to him. Okay. And this is the 15-hour one. I'll see you guys when that's done. See y'all then. Okay, folks, we've returned. Let's get the results of the odd contraption. Maddie, it's lovely to see you. Oh, it's my pleasure, Charlie. But this may not be a good time to chat. Matthew needs answers about this apparatus we found in a vegetable crate. Of course, Matthew. This is a clever mechanism invented for the purpose of lifting up heavy objects. Winches of this kind are commonly used in slaughterhouses, where great quantities of meat must be hoisted up and moved easily. Slaughterhouses, you say, but we found the winch on the bridge. It must have been the killer who used it to raise the victim's body up to the rails. Charlie, was there anything on this contraption that may lead us to the killer? I found a piece of fabric stuck between the cogwheels. It must have come from the clothing the killer wore while operating the mechanism. There is a distinct pinstriped pattern on it. Look. So our killer wears pinstripe clothing, just like the jail uniform they'll wear once you arrest them, Matthew. And now the blood. Matthew, the blood you collected from the murder weapon's handle was a match with the victim's. But it also contains a most unlikely component. Don't keep us waiting, Viola. This could finally tell us who's to blame for Tommy Boyd's murder, the Italians or the Irish. I'm afraid the microscope cannot answer that, Matthew. Chemical compounds rarely distinguish between nationalities. But I can tell you the traces of another crimson substance were present in your blood sample, lipstick. The killer must have transferred a smidgen of lipstick from their hands to the knife. I wager they touched up their makeup before the murder. So we're looking for a killer who wears lipstick. These crimson lips may have told many lies, but now the truth shall prevail, Matthew. Matthew, we have all the evidence we need to arrest Tommy Boyd's killer. Irish or Italian, Crimson Bank streets will be a safer place without them. No, not Butcher Betty. Certainly not Scott Buckley. He's clean. Minute, folks. Okay. Taking my time here. I'm gonna try the Italian lady first. It is right. Margarita Morello, you're under arrest for Tommy Boyd's murder. What have you got to say for yourself? Senior Trooper Matthew, why would you make such a cruel accusation? My heart still bleeds over Tommy's death. Well, Tommy was bleeding profusely too, as you cut him open and hung him up in the slaughterhouse. We found the blood-soaked apron you wore to protect your clothes. Please don't put these ghastly images in my head. They'll haunt me in my nightmares. Stop pretending you're a delicate flower. We also recovered your lost bracelet, the one you made in prison. We know you aren't as innocent as you'd have us believe. I already admitted I'd been to jail. Holding that past mistake against me only proves you have nothing else. Enough! We found your murder weapon discarded near the bridge, and the winch you used to hang up the body. Why did you do it, Margarita? You said you loved Tommy despite the feud between your people. I almost believed in your forbidden romance, but the evidence tells another story. I believed in our forbidden romance too, Senior Trooper Matthew, and what a fool I was. I admit it, Senior Trooper Matthew, I killed Tommy, but he deserved it. He was a coward too, he was a coward, too afraid to love me the way I loved him. It was hard enough that Tommy insisted we kept our love a secret because he was Irish and I was Italian. He wouldn't even hold my hand in the street. But when he realized I was in the gang, he really got cold feet. Can you believe he left a woman like me over this? You're in the gang? Why are you so surprised, Senior Trooper Matthew? Not all of us are gun-wielding burly chaps. Just look at Franca Capesci. She's holding her own now that Vittorio's dead. She's finally done the right thing by declaring open season on the Irish. And if Tommy became the first victim, he only had himself to blame. He shouldn't have turned his back on me. Your love story shall end in prison now, Miss Morello. You're under arrest for murder. Margarita Morello, you stand trial for the murder of Irishman Thomas Boyd, your former suitor. You killed him in a particularly gruesome manner. What made you commit this hideous act? He betrayed my love, Your Honor. That's why I strung him up and sliced him open like the pig he was. I knew Butcher Betty would turn a blind eye and hide the body for me. After all, she's been doing the gang favors for years. Butcher Betty acted as your accomplice? The Italian's influence reaches much farther than you think, Your Honor. Well, it's high time to put an end to that. I will have that woman brought to justice without delay. And you, Miss Morello, shall be sentenced to 25 years in prison. All rise. You can't put me in jail. You can put me in jail, but you won't stop the vendetta. Senior Trooper Matthew, glad as I am that you've brought Tommy Boyd's killer to justice, the case isn't quite over yet. We must apprehend the killer's accomplice, Butcher Betty. If ordinary citizens are now in cahoots with gangsters, this city's in deeper trouble than I thought. Leave it to us, Judge Lawson. Matthew and I will find Betty at once. And we will. Take a look at the other ones. No lipstick for Antonio Dante. Dermot McMurphy, cleared from the start. Butcher Betty, no plaid. Scott Buckley, he was cleared from the start. It was Margarita Morello. I'll see you guys for a plague on both your houses, 1-6. All right, folks, we have returned. Let's start a plague on both your houses, 1-6. Matthew, you've arrested Margarita Morello for Tommy Boyd's murder.
I don't think he took a cab. He's been fairly meticulous so far. There won't be one more witness.
But she confessed that Butcher Betty helped her. Judge Lawson wants us to arrest the... Matthew, I'm so glad you're here. I need to talk to you. I know you're busy, but please see me when you have a minute. All right, Rose, we'll swing by once you're done with Betty.
Oh, there's no gym bag. And aside from these manicure scissors, no cutting instrument, but this guy is a piece of work. You gotta check this out.
Miss Betty, we're here to place you under arrest. Margarita Morello confessed that you helped her cover up Tommy Boyd's murder.
Bloody close. It's got enough personal hygiene products in here to open his own salon. All his.
Senior Trooper Matthew, Margarita was a gangster and the Italians are ruthless. Keeping them happy is the only way to survive on this side of the bridge. And they never asked me to hide dead bodies before, only packages, which they pick up a few days later. I'm telling the truth. Look around and see for yourselves. Well, it's up to the judge to decide if you deserve leniency, Betty. You'll be taken into custody now until your trial.
Every detail of his life, that he can become this man that he wants to be.
But Senior Trooper Matthew and I shall check the slaughterhouse for those gang packages.
He went to extremes to get it back. So we're taking every knife from the kitchen back to the lab. But I'm not hoping for much. I doubt he brought anything with him. I've seen back here. What the hell is this?
It's a search, Dr. Mack. I'll be out of your way in a minute.
You can't march in here and destroy my home. Yeah, it's a real bite in the ass, isn't it? All those new labels you'll have to make. What's your last case? Yeah. I need those. Ramon. Yeah. Doing all these ones for you. See, the problem with blood is it gets absorbed by plastic. Can't wash it off. What's that supposed to be? Exactly what we're looking for.
All right.
Remember Dr. George Moore?
Now.
Researched him? He's a psychiatrist too. Stop what you made. Brought you in to shrink the shrink. Does that make you feel important? It just seems unnecessary. I didn't do anything wrong.
Your wife took that breath.
No. You're having marital
Blades, lunchbox, and teddy bear.
She left you. I wouldn't say she was leaving me so much as going to the man who fathered her child. She just thought that was the best solution to the problem. But it was the wrong solution.
Matthew, Betty said she was hiding packages here for the Italian gang. And lo and behold, you found a parcel. Let us look inside. Quick, smart.
Know what she was. Apparently she wanted to have a relationship with another man. Why? She probably felt our relationship was lacking. Lacking is a real interesting
You're a smart guy.
Oh my goodness, a finger.
Smarter than everyone else. That's why you screw up.
You been to the gym lately?
Sweet mother of pearl, Matthew. Is that a severed finger in the Italian's parcel? You're right. This isn't the first time we find such a hideous thing. The Italians already used this form of intimidation in Stonewall Prison. I agree. Dick should examine his finger and tell us what befell its owner.
Your wife made you look stupid, and you made her pay for it.
I love my wife.
You once killed her. Now, you killed the baby. You just wasn't smart enough to do the job right.
I don't even know what that means.
Nicole will never have children again, Dr. Manning. And neither will you.
Now let's find out what Rhodes needs us for.
All I care about is my wife.
Matthew, somebody's stolen one of my weapons.
Your wife's child.
What?
That's how you got rid
Do you
of
mean it was stolen from the airship? Yes! And if it was that scoundrel Diego, I'll strangle him with my bare hands. We should never have allowed criminals to join our team. Please, Rose, let us not jump to conclusions. Did the thief leave any clues? No, but I saw a cloaked figure running to Crimson Banks.
The Honda Perfect Accord sales event is your chance to
Crimson Bridge when I looked out of my window.
been named a Car Drivers 10 Best list, record-breaking 30
You'll come with me to Crimson Bridge and track down this thief? I knew I could count on you, Matthew.
has a 5-star overall vehicle score. The Honda Accord is also the best-selling car in its class. Place in to the Honda Perfect Accord sales event and get a great deal on the Accord today at your Honda dealer.
Visit a place where siblings become friends, parents become kids, and neighbors become family. Great Wolf Lodge. Everybody in.
Visit GreatWolf.com to get the best deals on your family getaway.
I just saved a bunch of money on my car insurance with Geico.
Alright, let's see.
I should take a closer look at that guy.
Geico can help with way more than car insurance. Boats, homes, motorcycles, even umbrella coverage.
This guy's gonna wish he brought his umbrella.
Fare it well.
How'd you know the guy's name is Will?
It's an expression. Not fare it well. You never heard of that? Oh, that goes well.
By Will, that's not his name.
Take a closer look at Geico.
Paddle. Handgun. Rose's gun.
At IKEA, we believe that everything you need should be within reach. In an affordable dream kitchen that works as hard as you do. Save up to 15% at the IKEA kitchen event.
Matthew, you found my pistol. I knew you'd make short work of this. I'm still convinced it was that miscreant Diego who stole it. But if you want to take a sample of that blue stain on the gun to be sure, I shan't stand in your way. Rose, all I can say is I hope you haven't even said anything to Diego about that.
What if there was a paint where each drop was formulated to be smarter? Even smarter than that. So if a color didn't go on evenly, it would balance itself out to reveal its truest, richest state. If a paint could realize the fullest potential of any color, you have to wonder, is it still paint?
There we are.
Only available at independently owned paint and hardware stores.
Matthew, let's send the substance from the gun to Viola and see if she can tell us who absconded with my gun. 6 hours? Yes, it is. Okay, I'll see you guys when these two are done. See y'all then. Okay, folks, we've come back. Let's get the results of severed finger from Dick, the coroner. Matthew, if you keep sending me severed fingers, I'll soon have a full hand. That is not the reason we're sending them to you, Dick. Matthew found that finger in the Italian gang's parcel. Any luck identifying the owner? Well, I could tell from the wound that the person was alive when their finger was cut off. And the fingerprint told me they still are. The digit belongs to a certain Sean Flynn, an Irish shopkeeper. He reported the incident to the police. Flynn claimed a gangster beat him up and cut off his finger. He named his assailant the Scorpion. The Scorpion? That's Tony Dante. We know him. Was he apprehended for the assault? No. In the end, Flynn chose to drop the charges and leave town. Dante was never convicted. Matthew, what do you want to bet Tony intimidated his victim into leaving? We better bring him in and ask what's going on here. Tony, you've beaten up an Irishman named Sean Flynn and cut off his finger, and then made sure he left town. Why did you come after him? The police never proved it was me who roughed up that potato seller. Anyway, those Irish are vermin. It's them you should be after. Maybe Flynn would still have his finger if he didn't poke his nose where it didn't belong. He saw me planting a spying device in that Irish cabbie's car and... forget I said anything. Oh, you planted a spying device in Boyd's car? Thank you very much for the information. We'll be sure to check it. Let's have a snack and go, Matthew. Too bad for you, pal. You let it come out, you pay for it. There it is. Goggles, goggles, where the hell are you? There we are. Not that it matters. Matthew, could this box be the spying device Tony admitted to planting in the car? Let's open the box to be sure. P3 H1E. Just got the 9 in time. Matthew, that's definitely the spying device we were looking for. Look at that listening ear and knobs and wires. Good idea. Let's send this machine to Charlie and see what he has to say about it. This is also 6 hours, so I'll get the results tonight. But I have some other results to get to, and that's this blue device. Viola, did that blue substance help identify the shameless rascal who stole my gun? Well, the substance itself was ink, which suggests our thief has ink-stained fingers. A thief who writes? Matthew, I told you, it must be our Diego. Not so fast, Rose. You see, the sample also contained traces of sweat that I put under the DNA machine. And I can tell you that your thief is female and blonde. And it just so happens that we have a blonde lady with ink on her fingers right here in the library. Evie? What would that little scaredy cat need to steal a gun for? You're right, Matthew. Stranger things have happened. Like that one time my husband and I fought a gang of crocodile hunters from the... But never mind. Let's confront Evie with the evidence. Evie, we've caught you ink-handed. Why in heavens did you steal my gun? Oh no, you found out. I didn't mean to, it's just that I thought learning to shoot would be a good way to confront my fears. I cannot hide behind the team all the time. I must learn to show courage. How can I catch gangsters with Matthew otherwise? I want to be as fierce as you, Rose. My dear child, you're already fierce. Don't think for a second that having been injured makes you weak. You're strong in your own way. You can lift books and speak languages, and dazzle us all with your intelligence. Rose, that's too nice of you to say. Listen, Evie, why don't I make you a hot drink and tell you the story about how I lost my arm? Matthew, I won't keep you longer. Please take this money for your troubles. I'm grateful you found my pistol. You know what? I think I'll go ahead and speed up the spying device. Charlie, have you managed to examine the Scorpion's spying device for us? Of course. Anything for you, Maddie. Something tells me we're going to see a romantic connection here at the end, like we've seen between Jonah and Marina in the last district, the World Edition. And for the investigation as well, of course, Matthew. Anyway, the Italian gangster spying device is a clever mechanism used for rather nefarious purposes. The mechanism registers the sound waves by impressing them onto a cylinder, so entire conversations can be recorded and played back later. That said, the quality is lamentably poor. I could only hear garbled words and fragmented sentences. A male voice mentioned something about a new Irish gang leader, and I also heard a name that seemed familiar, Dermot McMurphy. We know the Irish gang's been floundering since Matthew arrested Finley Flanagan, but if they have a new leader, what would Dermot know? He isn't in the gang. You're right, Matthew. Dermot did say there was a lot the cops didn't know about him. It's definitely time to find out more. Maddie, Senior Trooper Matthew, I hope you ain't holding a grudge anymore, now that you know I was innocent and all. You're far from innocent, Dermot. We know you're involved with the Irish gang now. What? Senior Trooper Matthew, you know I've made some mistakes and I have no love for them pasta-eater Italians, but that don't make me a gangster. There's talk of a new Irish leader and your name was mentioned in a confidential conversation. Well, I can't imagine why they'd mention me name alongside a new gang leader. I'm telling you, I have no idea what them gangsters are up to. Senior Trooper Matthew, you and Maddie can always count on me for anything you need. Here, take this as a token of my goodwill, and don't listen to gossip about me. Matthew, I guess we shouldn't be surprised that Butcher Betty has been convicted for helping an Italian gangster to commit murder. But this shows that civilians are getting drawn into the gang wars now that Franco Capesci declared open season on the Irish in revenge for Vittorio's murder. To make matters worse, there are alarming rumors that the Irish gang has found a new leader. Dermot denies involvement, so we'll need to keep digging to find out who it is. Meanwhile, Tony the Scorpion is spying on the Irish, beating up anyone who gets in his way. Matthew, something tells me this is only the beginning of our troubles in Crimson Banks. The gangs are heading for outright war. That's right. Let's see, bulldog, a penguin, and an otter. I don't think I really want either of these. Kind of wish there was the burger awards and the food awards like before, but I've learned to live with the changes. June 29th, that's a Thursday. 4 new ones. Five new ones. Three. And even though it's kind of doubtful, I do hope the Save the World one has the food rewards. Nothing for case 31. Okay. And I'll see you guys for case 32 on Thursday, June 29th. See y'all then.